Hey everyone, just your friendly neighborhood rapier sword fighter here, Rob Childs, coming to you with another instructional video for rapier combat. Now this time what I wanted to do was to talk about, as I have before, I've spoken about things like measure and distance and timing, all of these individual skill sets that we need in order to become our greatest swordsman. Well, now what I'd like to do is to talk about one of the specific techniques. And remember, a technique is just a series of simple actions that you have put together in a certain order and in a certain timing in order to create said technique. Well, now we're going to talk about one of those techniques that I like to use, and it's a little more complex than some of the other things that I've talked about, but I have no doubt that with practice you guys will be able to make use of this, or maybe even just parts of it, in order to better inform and better execute your own combat art. So this particular technique I like to call bear trap. And the reason for it is that it takes your opponent's weapon, traps it between a sword and a dagger, and holds it fast while you use the entire architecture to attack your opponent in return. So let me show you what I'm talking about, and don't worry if you're not catching all of the details from this angle that you're seeing right now. I'm going to go over it some more from above, where you're going to be able to see it much better, the arrangement, where the dagger goes, where the sword goes, all of it. But as before, if you have any questions, please feel free to shoot me a message on Facebook. You can also leave a question, as always, in the comment section on this YouTube channel, and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. So for that, let's go ahead and get to the explanation. Okay, Lynn? So this technique utilizes what I call a very simple parry 3, where your opponent attacks, whether it be to the body, to the head, it doesn't matter if it's in the torso region or what have you, you just simply move into a parry 3. So Lynn, you move, and I parry to a 3. This is the first action. Now, the next action is you take your dagger and you line it up low as if you're coming up underneath, which you're going to do. You shove down with your sword and you bring up your dagger to meet them in the middle. Now what you'll do is you'll create this architecture of a triangle between your opponent's sword, and your dagger. As your opponent recovers, you will then take this entire architecture and angle it into the next attack. Okay, so we're going to do that again just so you can see. So come a little bit more forward so that way they can see it. There you go. Okay, so first step is the attack and the parry. Then the second step is, while she's in the midst of finishing that lunge, I am slamming her sword down on top of my dagger, creating the triangle. Then I take the whole architecture as she recovers and shove it into her head. Okay, now for the purposes of better explanation, I'm going to show you from the point after the parry 3 and you have shoved your opponent's sword down. So that way you have a much better angle now in order to see that. So from that 3, I have shoved my opponent down and brought up my dagger, creating the triangle. This architecture allows you to maintain control of your opponent's weapon as you turn the whole thing up and into their body as your opponent recovers. Key to remember is this area of your opponent's sword. This is where you must do that capture. If you do all of this too far down, then your opponent becomes too strong and they will be able to fend off this attack. You do it too far up, your opponent's weapon's just going to slip out because all you're hanging on to is the foible. So you're going to want to make sure that at around the feeble meso transition area, which is right about here, this is where you're going to do that capture from. Okay, so I hope you all found at least a little bit of use and knowledge out of that particular technique. As always, if you have questions, don't be afraid to reach out to me on Facebook. I'm more than happy to help out where I can, and you can leave those questions in the comment section on YouTube. Until then, I hope you're all staying safe, and as always, train hard and fight even harder.